So, colleagues, let's start our webinar. I see that many of the registered users have already joined our webinar. I would like to remind you that we hold this webinar as the first online meeting of the open competition for the architectural concept of two metro stations, the Prospekt Marshala Zhukova and Klenoviy Boulevard 2. Our webinar takes place in Russian. It will also be dubbed in English. The working languages of the competition are Russian and English. Our speakers today are the Chief Architect of Moscow, Sergei Kuznetsov, the Chief Engineering Expert of Mosinzhproekt, Alexei Naumenko, the Head of Analytics of the Center Agency Center is Olga Gritsan, and the leading analyst of the Center Agency, Maria Zalevskaya. My name is Sergei Georgievskii. I'm the moderator of this session and the representative of the organizing committee on behalf of Mosinzhproekt and on behalf of the Committee on Architecture of Moscow. And the Chief Architect joins us for this webinar today. You should see the presentation on your screen. Please write in our chat whether you can hear us and see us and whether you can see the presentation on your screen. So, I can see that everybody can hear us and see us well, if we judge by the comments, and we can start. So, Sergei, over to you. Good afternoon, everybody. We have basically started our fifth competition for the architectural concept of the metro station. You see on the slide some statistics. You know that the Moscow Metropolitan has seen some active construction for several years, and since Sergei Sabanin became the mayor, we have seen this active construction, the most active perhaps in the history of the city. So, as an architectural team, we try to support Moscow traditions that the Metropolitan is not just a functional unit, not just a means of transport, but also an architectural masterpiece. So we try to make it more interesting, more memorable, with hallmark stations as a true city site. So we can proceed with the slides, whoever is responsible for that. The next slide, please. Thank you. I would like to remind you once again that we've already held 4 competitions for designs of metro stations, for 9 stations altogether. This is the 5th competition for 2 stations. The stations from the previous competitions have already been implemented. Some are currently in the pipeline. Novoperidelkina has just recently been constructed and they are now functional. You have seen it on the websites, in architectural journals, etc., etc. Now, currently at the final stage, we have Mnevniki and Karamashevskaya. So we have some project names, Mnevniki and Karamashevskaya. And it's quite common for Metropolitan that during the construction we have a working name, but it is changed at the end because we have a vote in place on the Active Citizen website and various ways to choose the final name for a metro station. So don't be surprised that now we have a different name from the initial one. This has nothing to do with design, although it is an issue for this competition because sometimes we link our project to the working name, so we try to find some connection in etymology, in pronunciation, and then the name changes, so that might constitute a problem, but so far, more or less, we have not seen any gaffes, but we have seen some occasions when we have to change design when changing the name, but those are not those stations under the competitions. We've recently had such a case. You can see the winners, you can see it on your slides, so I'm not going to mention that. The architects who take part are also listed, and for them, such a competition is a pathway into the future, especially for young architects, and now they become very well known. And I guess thanks to this metro competitions and competitions altogether. So we have new stations here, Nagatinsky Zaton and Klenoviy Boulevard. This is the design. They are only to be completed. The work is under construction. So, and we are closely following how the project is being implemented, and the architect works with the general planner with our constant support. We often hold consultations, we provide support for architects. We do not want to see any discrepancies in design, and if everything is to be changed, then it should be approved by the general planner. So if you win the competition with a certain design project, we can say that it is going to be implemented. The stations we have under competition are stations of the new lines. The Prospekt Marshala Zhukova is a part of the Rublevo-Arkhangelsky line, a grind center, as Moscow becomes polycentric. It's not there yet, but it's currently being constructed. It's a very interesting process for the city development, but you can actually do your part and create one station of the line. The second stage is Klenoviy Boulevard 2 of the Berlovsky line. There was a station called Klenoviy Boulevard 1. I am not sure if this name is going to stay, but we'll see. So my advice for you is to find certain things in your design which can withstand the test of a name change. So pay attention to that when you send your application. I guess that my part is over with this slide, if I'm not mistaken. And my colleagues should continue. Alexei? Good afternoon. My name is Naumenko Alexei. I represent Mosinzhproekt, the chief contractor for the construction of the Metropolitan. We currently see the construction of two new lines, that is Rublevo-Arkhangelsky line, which is going to service the northwestern part of Moscow. The length of the line is 12.78 kilometers, and there are 6 new stations. As part of this line and for the architectural competition, the Prospekt Marshala Zhukova station is suggested. Prospekt Marshala Zhukova is shown here on top, and on the left it would be a transfer station to the Ulitsa Narodного Opolchenia of the large circle line. The second one is the Berlovsky line, which is going to service the south of Moscow. It's going to have 10 stations, and the length of the line is 23 kilometers. It can be extended further south. And the station under competition is Klenoviy Boulevard 2. Prospekt Marshala Zhukova is a transfer station, and you can actually change to the station of Narodное Opolchenie of the large circle line. It is at the crossing of Ulitsa of Demyan Bedny and the Prospect of Marshal Zhukov. This is a shallow station. It has 2 underground vestibules, a 3-span platform with the width of 14 meters, and the length of the platform is 163 meters. At the ends of the platform, we will see escalators which lead to passageways, and from underground passageways we reach pedestrian crossings, and then using stairs we can go outside. The transfer to the Ulitsa Narodного Opolchenia will be at the level of the vestibule, which would be linked by a 6-meter corridor to the station, as of now. The next slide. And the next station is Klenoviy Boulevard 2, also a transfer station to the Klenoviy Boulevard station of the large circle line. The station is located in Nagatinsky Zaton of the South Administrative District of Moscow. It crosses, it's a cross between Klenoviy Boulevard and the Kolomenskaya station. It's also a shallow station with 2 underground vestibules. There's an island platform, 2-span platform, with a width of 11.6 meters as of now, but there can be changes made to that. And the length is 163 meters, which is a standard length for a Moscow underground platform. The vestibule is connected by stairs, and there are also exits to underground pedestrian crossings, and then we actually have an exit with using the stairs. The transfer would be to the Canova Boulevard station, which is currently under construction at the level of the vestibule, and in essence that would be a singular vestibule for 2 stations. So, briefly, those are the technical parameters that we currently have. And then I would like to give the floor over to the head of the organizing committee, to Sergei Georgievskii. Dear colleagues, I would like to highlight several aspects of the competition itself. The purpose of our competition is looking for the best designing and architectural solution for the interiors of passenger areas and entrance halls of the stations mentioned. And this solution should include also the materials, lighting, and non-permanent constructions. I would like to say that together with the architectural committee in Mosinzhproekt, we organized consultations with the producers of materials and technologies so they could take into account all the latest trends. The participants might include individual legal entities and consortiums in which you can unite yourselves with other members into a singular team. And the leader of such a consortium should be a Russian legal entity. And the consortium might also include foreign partners. It's an international competition, and international consortiums are welcome to participate. So, if we talk about the stages, it's an open international and 2-stage competition. As part of the first stage, we will select 10 finalists, 5 for each station, and each finalist in the second stage of the competition is going to sign an agreement and receive 400,000 rubles, including all the taxes and duties. As a part of the second stage, we will select 2 winners, each for 1 station, and then we will allow you to sign a contract to develop a booklet with your architectural and urban planning solutions to receive a certificate on that it was adopted for this permanent construction or architectural supervision for your project of construction works on those stations. And the priority is given to those teams which can continue working as part of the implementation of their own project. So if we look at the timeline, we have started on the 15th of April. We see that this information was received by most relevant architectural bureaus, and today we are holding our first webinar on the 21st of May. This is the application deadline. Your application should be submitted online at the official website of the designer of Metro. You can register there. You can fill out your application, and as you fill it out, you can make certain changes and save them, and once you're ready, you can click send, and the application will now go to the organizing committee, and you can make no changes to it. The 21st of May is the deadline for application submission. On the 2nd of June, we'll have a meeting of the jury, and we will select 10 finalists, and then on the 17th of June, we will have a project seminar for them. At the first stage, documents you have, that's the general framework and the invitation, which has the general conditions, the rules and the conditions. So those teams which would be selected by the jury on the 2nd of June as part of the second stage would have an expanded documentation and terms of reference with digitalization, so that on the 17th of June you can discuss it in detail and use it in your future work. On the 24th of July, you present your competition proposals. The finalists present them, and they are getting analyzed. And then on the 20th of August, there's the final meeting of the jury, and we select the winner. The composition of the jury traditionally includes various experts. We have the representative of the Moscow administration, Mosinzhproekt, as well as the representatives of the Moscow Metropolitan and experts who provide supervision for the competition for many competitions already, and you can see Alexander's Miu and Yulia Burdova and others. The principles of forming a jury takes into account not only their expertise but also their participation in previous competitions, because here we have winners of the previous competitions. And then we move on to coming with a concept for the stations. Now I'm going to pass over to Maria Selevska. The urban planning concept and architectural design complex should comply with the historical and cultural concept, especially considering its symbolic significance and local historic and cultural peculiarities close and related to the identity of those regions and those areas where metro is built. We also include the functional peculiarities of adjacent territories and the prospects of urban planning of those areas and the general role in the transport system of the city. The Prospekt Marshala Zhukova station is located in the northwestern part of the city, in the Horoshovo-Mnyovniki district. It is one of the greenest areas with well-developed social infrastructure, and its hallmark sites of citywide significance, for example, the Severebryny Bor Natural Reserve, Zhivapisny Bridge, or, for example, the Hodinsky radio station. The station itself is an interchange station which links the large circle line to the Rublovo-Arkhangelsky diameter, and its role in the context of the development of the transport system is to boost its accessibility of transport station for the residents of adjacent areas and to cut the travel time in the city and for the recreational areas. The Canova Boulevard 2 station is located in the South Administrative District in the area of Nagatinsky Zaton. It's an autonomous and self-sufficient area which includes such hallmark sites as the largest amusement park in Europe, Dream Island, and also a complex of residential and multifunctional areas, River Park, and Kolomensky Museum and Natural Reserve. This station is also a part of the transport and transfer hub, which links the Berlovsky line to the large circle line of the Moscow Metropolitan. Both areas are included into the urban planning concept of the city and a part of the renovation programs, as well as residential area construction. Competition proposals should correlate with the general and master plan for this area development. Also, they should be original, but at the same time, they should comply with the stylistic requirements and should be implementable. That is, they should comply with the operational requirements for materials, lighting, navigation, furniture, etc., etc. They should also comply with the security standards, especially considering the passenger flow, and should also be accessible to people with reduced mobility. The criteria for the assessment of proposal is not only the content that should be harmonious with artistic solutions, and also convenient and secure transfer and movement for all categories of population, functionally using all the spaces in compliance with all the technical regulations of the Moscow Metropolitan, using modern technologies, long-term and eco-friendly materials. They should have also a single system of navigation in compliance with the booklet of the typology of navigation signs of the Moscow Metropolitan, and also pay attention to the budget, which should be at the level of 200 to 150 million rubles for each station. Materials and all the technological solutions should be Russian-made. And now I'm passing over to Sergei Georgievskii so that he could talk about the composition. The composition is quite traditional. At first, you present your essay, where you would reflect your vision as to how you're going to approach those tasks that you have as part of the competition. You can provide visual materials for your essay, sort of a sketch. This is very welcome. You're very welcome to do this. Then you need to provide information about your company, so we would have an impression of your experience, about the staffing, about your sustainability, and then a portfolio of relevant projects which would demonstrate all the projects that the company implemented previously. They might be part of the competitions, or they might be those projects that are in the pipeline, so that the members of the jury could have their own impression of your experience in this particular area.
So, now let's go to the visual materials and the essay. Your essay should contain the key ideas, but it doesn't mean that you at this stage should present the full-fledged project. First stage is a preliminary one, a qualifying one, so you should lay out your key ideas for both of the nominations. Each essay should contain the text part with the parameters that are in the invitation for the participation that was sent to you, and we would welcome a graphic part of your essay. The limit is 2,000 characters because the volume is rather great and the members of the jury should make their conclusions. As for the visual materials, there can be the schemes of the platform halls or something else according to what you deem important. Then the requirements for the portfolio format, they are well defined in the invitation and in the other documents. You see them on the screen, and during the whole competition you may visit designmetro.ru. You also may use the official email and the hotline, so that our colleagues may provide you with all the necessary information at any moment. If you have some additional requests, we'll be working in the one-stop shop system, and through the website you can make any request to any of the participants of the process, and to have any consultation through this website or hotline. You can get any clarification you may need. And the last slide, you see the requirements for the essay format and the visual materials formats. I guess for the majority of the architects, this information is well known. They are really classic, but just in case, we have them here. So the system that you will be uploading them to, it will give you tips what you have to do. Maybe you have to change formats or the number of characters. So please bear these requirements in mind. And finally, here you see the website and the email info@designmetro.ru and the hotline, which will be working from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. You'll be able to receive consultations on this hotline, and if you will unite with your foreign colleagues into a consortium, you may request the consultations in the English language, because the hotline will be working both in Russian and in English, and our email also is working in Russian and in English. You will be able to get the consultation in one of those languages. So here we finish with the basic information of our presentation. We have the questions that we have in our chat since the beginning of the webinar. I would like to once again remind that we have now 98 participants of the webinar. You can leave your questions and write your questions to our chat, and we'll be trying to take them all during this webinar. So the first question that I see is from Zuhra, the question about portfolio. So the portfolio for the first stage, what does a relevant project mean? Zuhra says that it is really rather vague, so she would like to understand what public spaces might be included into the portfolio and what are the types, and what other spaces cannot be included to this portfolio. So, dear colleagues, when we say relevant projects, well, it is clear that we speak about the projects that were implemented for the subway stations, but taking into account that there might not be many companies or bureaus that participated in such work, that's why we expanded the list, and we also consider any facilities of the transport infrastructure, because there are some similarities, functional similarities of those objects. For example, those are the places of mass gatherings, We mean bus stations, railroad stations, crossings with high traffic. So any transport facilities that may have a high traffic of passengers, of course, will be deemed as relevant projects. Also, we have added to that list such facilities like closed public spaces with a high traffic of visitors. We don't mean by such a place where people can eat or drink something. We mean a place where people can move. So those are some peculiarities given to the transportation facilities, maybe some entrance zones of some greater malls or trade galleries or any other closed objects and facilities where you will see a higher traffic, or to transfer it to some other functional zone and then to distribute it through the space. It will be hard to give a more specific answer. Maybe other colleagues would add something. May I add a couple of words? As we have seen from our experience, the winners of previous competitions, they didn't have in their portfolio what we now call relevant projects, but still they were able to win those competitions. So what I would propose is to insert into your portfolio what you deem important and relevant from the point of view of your experience. Of course, we may not even know about some of your projects, and it's up to you to evaluate this. Of course, you cannot add some interior of the private apartment or house. It will be useless, but what you may deem relevant and correct or important will be really welcome, because there might be some things that were not foreseen by us, taking into account the metro stations that we are now talking about. So it's up to you to add those works into your portfolio. We'll consider them all. Next question from Zuhra. The question is whether they will receive some additional parameters on the sizes of platforms and entrance halls, or the initial data that we have in the invitation is everything that we can get now. Well, the invitation that was sent, it has this initial data that was given by the Mosinzhproekt, and that this data will be worked with during the first stage. But if you, Zuhra, need some additional parameters, please, you can send your request to the email that was given to you. We'll try to work on this issue, and we'll give you an answer on the data that might be published at this stage. So the next question is almost the same, which is the height of the floors on the both stations. Can we answer this question now, or it will be known later? We can answer, because the standard height 5-6 meters as a rule. The differences will be insignificant, so we can say that it will be 5 meters minimum from the floor to the ceiling, or maybe 6 meters, because the stations are in the row now, they have been designed and they have been traced. The location is rather complicated with the transfer hubs and so on and so forth, but we don't have stations that will have less than 5 meters. So this parameter is 5 meters height. Thank you. Vladimir Ulyanov has a question. Will there be a video of this webinar after the end of the webinar? Yeah, at the website, on the website of this competition, you'll be able to see the video for all the participants, and also on our YouTube channel, etc. Planar Bureau. Well, it is clear that the participation consortium is a condition for participation for our foreign colleagues. As for the Russian bureaus, should they form a consortium with the foreign bureau, will it be an advantage? Will it have some significance? Mr. Kuznetsov, I give the floor to you. So I think that there will be neither advantages nor disadvantages in consortiums. The times when we thought that it is really important to learn lessons from our foreign colleagues, of course we always have to do this. We need to learn best practices for example, during the competition for the Zaryadia Park, we wanted the whole world to come to us, but now, as I think, we have a great landscape of architectural bureaus. We have many talented bureaus. It is not really required to make a consortium. If you feel that you are able to make a good proposal, you have to do this. Just give it a shot. If you have some ideas, different ideas, and if you would like to work with some small or big foreign bureaus, you can do this. We are interested in a diversity, in a creativity while making a decision, and when we will make the decision, we'll try to be as unbiased as possible. Whether it will be a consortium, will it be a Russian or foreign legal entity, the most important thing is the quality, regardless of the nationality of the author of the proposal. So there, we will not be thinking that if you're not in a consortium with foreigners, then your position may be weaker than the others. We'll accept any kind of proposals, and we'll consider them all. Thank you so much, Mr. Kuznetsov. I guess now we'll have to let Mr. Kuznetsov go, because his schedule is rather tight. And I see that there are no questions for Mr. Kuznetsov right now. But if you allow, Mr. Kuznetsov, if there are some questions personally for you, we'll prepare them after this webinar and we'll send those questions to you for some additional consultations. Yeah, sure, we'll stay in contact, and I'll be ready to take any questions, because we are interested in receiving interesting proposals and projects that will be suitable for our metro, for our subway. Thank you so much. We will be waiting for your questions and applications. Thank you so much for your interest. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. Thanks. So, dear colleagues, now we are moving to our next question from Tigran from iStudio. His question is as follows. He asks the question about the transfer to the other stations at the center of the whole of the platform. Well, speaking of these two stations, there will be no transfer from the center of the platform. As I've already said, the transfers will be at the level of the vestibule. So in any case, we'll be going up through the escalator at the level of the vestibule in the Marshala Zhukova Prospekt, and then we'll be going to the Ulica Narodного Ополчения station. And at the station Klenoviy Boulevard 2, as I mentioned, we'll be going up to the level of the vestibule, and then at this stage we will see a single vestibule. Klenoviy Boulevard 2 is a station where we still have some engineering problems, and it is in the row still. Maybe there will be some additional transfer hubs there, but it will not affect the competition in any way. So the transfer will be through the vestibules at both stations. Okay, thank you. Next question. Are there some differences from previous competitions for the metro stations, maybe in format or in requirements from the initiators, I mean the Mosinzhproekt company? Well, I guess no, because this is the format that we had at the previous competition. Well, maybe the very first competition, where there was a proposal that the participants will make the project station and then they will work until the end. But as a result, this experience was not the best, because maybe they experienced some lack of knowledge and it was really hard to work for them. So that's why we just made in the architectural design booklet, and that's what we did. And now we have just the same format that we used to have, and the stations are the standard stations for the Moscow subway with the island platform. There are no brand new things as for the construction or type of the stations. And a question from Alex, just another question. Alexei, it's for you. So the Zhukova station is a 3-span station. Yes, correct, because the width is 14 meters, and taking into account that on the side of the platform we'll have tracks, so this platform is rather wide. It's 3-span, 2 columns on the platform, 2 rows of the columns on the platform. So you're right, it's 3-span station. Question from Vladimir Ulyanov. Can we make an application for 1 station or for 2 stations only at a time? So the format says that each team files an application for both stations. Where can we download the schemes of the designed stations? Well, in order to get the initial data, that's the question from Tatiana Komarova, you need to register on the official website, and then in your personal profile on the official website, when available, you'll be able to get all the necessary materials and the terms of reference, including you can make a request on the official email. Question from Vladimir. Will there be some commercial venue, trade stands? Can we use taco in the finishing? And can we offer a name for Klenoviy Boulevard 2? Non-working name. Alexei, I give the floor to you. Well, as for the trade stands, well, it's a difficult question because, of course, you may offer something during the competition, but while implementing, there's a question of fire safety in the underground passageways, and the latest trend is that this is a major problem for us. It will be better not to put trade stands there. But if it's your proposal, you're welcome. It will be neither disadvantage nor advantage at this stage, I'm sure. So the decision will be made at this stage of the design. And the question about the finishing of the station, will there be a possibility to use a stucco? Yeah, there is a possibility to use the stucco for the finishing works. We were using this, and we are using this already. So maybe there will be some problems with that. You will have to consider all the utility systems. So we have no problems with stucco, with the floors and walls. They can also be finished with stucco. We used to use it in the arch stations because we didn't do anything at the stations because this space was already well organized architecturally. So we've seen great examples of this, and on the columns of the stations, as a rule, we didn't use the stucco, but you can freely use it. You can just try it. And there's been another question. The third question, yes, the third question about the possibility to offer a non-working name for the Klenoviy Boulevard 2 station. Well, we would not prohibit to do this. I don't know whether it will be affecting the competition because, yeah, the Klenoviy Boulevard 2 name is a working name, just in order to give some name to this spot, to this station, because now it's not the time to think about this. But of course, you can make a proposal on this. But I'm not sure that your proposal will stay. But there are no prohibitions. Well, on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to say that we would welcome any additional proposals. So maybe it will have some influence on on the final name. And among the members of the jury, there are those who would adopt the decision. Should we fill our application in 2 languages? Well, in this case, this competition is international, so 2 languages is a compulsory element. So you need to file your application in 2 languages. Question from Alona. Good afternoon. I am the architect from the Blanc Architects Bureau. Is there any sense to take part for those who were already winners in such a competition? Do we have a chance? Well, I can say that there is no prohibition, no ban for those who were already winners to participate in this competition. And the practice is that if we have these competitions regularly for similar facilities. It may happen that a team could win several times, but in this case it will be neither advantage nor disadvantage. You can participate just like all the other bureaus and companies. You are able to present some relevant proposals in your portfolio. The question from Manana. You said that we can have an information about the finishing materials. Where can we have this information about these materials? Everything related to finishing materials, its production, its use, its possibilities and technologies will be discussed during the separate webinar, which we may have several webinars for the finalists of the competition. Those who produce these materials will participate in this webinar. They will be demonstrating the samples, materials and technologies that they have that were already used in Moscow subway and that were authorized by Moscow subway and by Mosinzhproekt, but those consultations will take place in the second stage of the competition because it's more in-depth study while preparing the competition project.
And Igor asks, whether is it possible for the self-employed to participate or only companies and individual entrepreneurs? So I used to be part of the company, but now I'm on my own and we have not registered our company. Igor, as per conditions, only legal entities can take part in the competition because in the second stage of the competition we sign an agreement, and after the competition we also sign an agreement, and there's a certain legal capacity that a legal entity has. So their participation is open for them. So as an individual, as a physical individual, you cannot take part in the competition. You can actually become a part of the consortium with somebody and then take part. On what conditions we will see the cooperation between the winner and the general planner? Well, as part of the competition, all the terms have been defined in the rules of the competition and the terms of reference. After the competition, you have the right to sign a contract as part of the second stage. As I've already highlighted several times, as part of the second stage, we sign a contract with each of the finalists, and then we sign the contract with the winner for the architectural planning. All the details will then be discussed with the selected teams, depending on what they are prepared to do. We know that there are various bureaus, those who are dealing with concepts only, and then those who are ready to provide architectural supervision. So we welcome those who can make those architectural booklets and then have the supervision, but it is a right, not an obligation. Another question. Is it possible to include into your portfolio implemented projects where we were included as consultants or as an engineering team, but not part of the artistic solution? Colleagues, anybody ready to comment? Relevance would be judged not only by one parameter, for example, the functional significance or the aesthetic qualities, etc., etc. It is assessed through all the components. So, if you have not participated as the main implementer of the project, so to say, so you were only providing consultations, but you were not involved directly in the preparation for the architectural and design concept, then it would likely be deemed at a lower grade than those projects where you took part as a leader in the production of an architectural design, for example. So we provide a comprehensive approach, and as Sergei said, we cannot say that we would give you a plus or a minus. The jury will provide a comprehensive assessment of your role as to how you have influenced, for example, in your expertise in engineering, on the overall project, or you had no effect whatsoever on the solution that you present in your portfolio. I would like to highlight that during the analysis for the applications on the first stage, we also check whether the company or the participant has actually something to do with the portfolio presented. So if the project has an author, an official legal entity which has intellectual rights, then we make a certain request, and this entity should confirm the level of your involvement, which is reflected in your application. The next question: will the working name Canova Boulevard 2 change, and how can we receive materials in PDF and DWG? Well, Alexei has actually commented on the working name already. It is a working name to define this space, so the name will then be defined, and you can make your own proposal, by the way. PDF, DWG format would be available, and after you register on the website, you can find it in your personal account, depending on the stage of the competition. If you require any materials at the first stage to submit your application, then you can address your request to info@metro.ru or the website of the competition. You can make it by phone, you can make it by email, or your personal account, whichever way you prefer. You can ask a question, and then we'll provide you with a consultation, with a comment. If we can provide you with the relevant materials, we will provide them. If not, then we will explain why and when you can see those materials, etc., etc. A question from Tigran from iStudio. The floors are arched or straight? Straight, as I've already said, that's a column station, so it's a three-span station, and Canova Boulevard is a two-span station, so the floor is straight and flat. There may be beams there, but you shouldn't think about it. You should take it as a given that it's a flat floor. Archinform.ru asks a question: is there a design variant with duplicate doors on the platform of the station? At this point in time, I suppose that those are safety doors along the platform. We are having discussions about that, so that the stations would be without any access to tracks for the passengers, so there would be a glass partition separating them from the train. This is possible, but as of now, I guess we shouldn't think about it too much, because if the decision would be made and you would be the winner, then you would just include those changes into your design, adapt it to the new reality. And, for example, Mr. Bashkayev, who designed the station with onshore platforms, and then, as part of the designing process and the constructive changes, it actually turned into the island platform station, and he did the first design well, and then he changed his design, and it was great as well. So, as of now, I cannot tell you whether those safety doors would be included into this project. So for now, I don't think you should include them, and you should take them into account as preparing your competition proposal. Okay, so the next question is, can we use dynamic elements in the decoration of the stations, for example, dynamic elements activated by airflow? I think not. And I guess we've already seen it in the previous competition, where we had this proposal from a finalist. The problem is whether or not you can use it or not. The fact is that the Moscow Metropolitan is staunchly against such elements, and the first thing they say is that they want to keep it safe and secure. It's the most important thing for the Metropolitan, because you have to look after those dynamic elements for them to work properly, so that they wouldn't fall down, so that nothing would happen on the station. Maybe they could fall on a train or on a passenger that would lead to a stop in traffic. And the Moscow Metropolitan told us that actually last time there was a proposal that the floor would change its position, activated by airflow, and there would be a kind of a wave going on, a beautiful one. But the Moscow Metropolitan said that they have safety and security first. They want to make it easy to operationalize. So we are not actually the ones who operate this object. We are only using it. We, as a client, are complying with the requirements of the Moscow Metro. And they said no, so do not do this. Thank you very much. Nadezhda asks, I would like to specify on the relevant projects. Are you talking about only the implemented projects in the portfolio? I guess the chief architect has already commented on this. No, not necessarily only the implemented projects. You can present any sort of project which you believe reflects your level of competence, your opportunities, and your key relevant capabilities. If you have a competition proposal, for example, it won some other competition, perhaps a project which is not yet implemented, you can present it in your portfolio. So, next question is from Arsen. What are the conditions on the document turnover for the participation of consortium, for example, LLC to individual entrepreneur, or all the participants are individual entrepreneurs? Can there be a team formed under the umbrella of one individual entrepreneur? Actually, the internal relations inside the consortium is something to be decided by the members of the consortium. We are not interfering into your relationships. The conditions have been defined. The participant might be either an individual legal entity or a number of legal entities under a consortium. The leader might be on the Russian legal entity, but the members might include other legal entities, including foreign legal entities. And how you would define your relationships inside the consortium, this is up to you. But traditionally, there's a declaration on the consortium formed and a sort of agreement of the parties as part of the consortium, in order for you to confirm that this consortium has been formed and you have defined your relationships as part of your joint participation in the competition, and you have a legal document to support this. Whether this would be an agreement, memorandum, a declaration, or something else, you should decide yourself, depending on the composition of your team, whether it's international or Russian. There are different variants. The next question, the structure and the type of both stations is the same, an island platform and tracks on the sides. Yes. The structure is the same. The difference is that on the Prospekt Marshala Zhukova, you have escalators at the ends of the platform, and on the Canova Boulevard station, you have stairs. And that's it. That's the only difference. Island platform and tracks on the side, yes. From the point of view of operationalize, what material is best for the ceilings of underground passageways? The ceilings of underground passageways and the ceilings of the platform. Underground passages usually have stucco ceilings without suspended ceilings, so we have concrete floors. The ceilings of the platforms are metallic, aluminum ceilings, something like that, nothing new about it. And Violeta asks, what is the minimal composition of the graphic part in the first stage of the competition? According to the documents, this is an obligatory part, but inside you it's voluntary. Well, actually, as part of our competition experience, we have sometimes included it as an obligatory condition, sometimes as an optional condition. But to have an impression on the key idea without any graphic part is quite difficult. That is why the majority of the teams do present this graphic visual part. So what are the requirements? You have seen it in the presentation. Maybe Olga or Maria can comment additionally on the nuances of those requirements. How many materials should be presented and how detailed? At the essay stage, it should be as detailed as required to reflect your key idea, because at this stage we evaluate the viability of your key idea, and your task is to reflect the key idea so that we will understand this is not an abstract image, so to say, but this is a well thought through idea, a developed idea, which can be further perfected in the finale of the competition. So we are not giving any definitions, and all the consortiums and participants have their own way of approaching this, because this is the first stage that we're at. So your task is to prove that you can not only think of a beautiful concept, but you can also demonstrate your key idea and show that it could be perfected further. And then it's up to you how many materials you can provide. Great. We have one question, whether the essay should be in 2 languages. Yes, everything is prepared in 2 languages. Your application should be in 2 languages. The catalogs are presented in 2 languages, etc., etc. Anton, what is the column spacing? I guess this is a question to Alexei. What is the column spacing for the stations? Well, perhaps we should have some initial data, because in general I can tell you that at the Canova Boulevard station, according to, say, a standard station project that we have currently applied for the station under construction, to understand as to how it can function, how it can fit, how we can have transfer, and the column spacing on the platform is 5 meters. For Prospekt Marshala Zhukova, along the platform, column spacing is 6.8 meters, and across the platform, the column spacing is around 6 meters. So it's 6 to 6.8 meters. But actually that might be a problem with the initial data presented, so perhaps we might discuss it with the organizers, how we should present this information, because we have some specifying questions which tell us of the lack of data at the outset. As representative of the organizing committee, I would like to say that these issues are mostly dealt with in the second stage. The information we provided the first stage and the information we provided the second stage, that's different information. We give some framework concept at the first stage, an invitation which allows you to have a general impression of the basic criteria, of the basic parameters, and using those parameters you can actually present your application for the qualifying stage. And then during the second stage, if you make it to the top 10, you receive an extended terms of reference, detailed data, some specifications, and a great package of documents that you need to use, but it is provided only to the finalists. How much visualization for the stations the jury awaits to see in each of the proposals as part of the competition? Platform, vestibule, entrance hall? Please specify. Are you talking about the first or second stage? Olga, you wanted to comment? I believe that those requirements are the requirements for the materials in the second stage. They require the visual materials for all key elements and all key areas, and at the first stage, this is up to you. This is a part of the competition. how many visual materials would be required to you in order to present your key idea, to make it understandable. You can use one or two, or you can use as many as you need if you have thought it through and technically and physically you have enough capacity to do this. There is no limit. Well, that's basically it, yes. Anton Mastrenkov asks, tell us on when do you plan to operationalize those stations? The working term is 2025. I cannot give you any more detailed information. We count on 2025. Thank you, Alexei. The next question is from Vladimir Yudanov. We would like to focus on developing a concept for one station only. Is that possible? In this case, this is to be decided by the jury. You can send an application for both stations only, and then the jury would define for each nomination who is going to make it into the top 5 for each stations and make it to the finals. So in one nomination on one station you can make it to the finals and not for another one, or you can make it to the finals for both stations and maybe perhaps not for any stations. The jury will decide, and the competition sees the obligatory participation of the team in the application for both stations.
Could you please specify the sizes of the entrance halls of the stations? Well, I think we'll be going back and forth. If it is needed and required for your key idea, please send an official request to our official email of the competition. But please, we would like to draw your attention to the fact that at the first stage we receive applications for the first station. Then the 10 finalists will receive all the necessary documentation and information that is required for the work with both stations and entrance halls. Question from Tigran. At the first stage, we need to present visual materials only for platform or for the ground level entrance hall as well. Well, Olga has already mentioned this, has already answered your question that you at the first stage, you just define the volume of your visual materials, and at the second stage they will be defined. If you are going through to the final, at the first stage you have to decide what will be the best way to express your key idea that will be presented in your essay through visual materials. The question from Olga: will there be a separate entrance hall? What will be the parameters of those halls? Alexei, question for you. Yes, there will be the passages from the underground passageways. There will be several separate entrance halls, and with the entrance pavilions and with the elevators pavilions. Those are standard parameters with the width 5 meters and the length of 18 meters. That's the foundation that arises from the ground, from the pavilion. And the height is, as a rule, around 4 meters. Well, high halls, everything that is more than 5 meters would not be accepted, because it has to do with the service, with the safety technique, etc. Because if we have more than 5 meters, we will be facing some difficulties in labor relations, and we are not allowed to do this. Because here we don't have a ground level entrance hall, we just have pavilions over the underground passageways. The parameters are like this: 5 meters and 18 meters, and the height is 4.5 meters. It will be enough. The next question from Sergei. I can work with a partner only at developing the concept. I need the materials and the terms of reference, but without the partner I don't have enough relevant projects. But can, at this stage, I be registered and get initial data? Well, this is an open competition. If you visit the official website of the competition, you will see that every potential participant can register without any limitations. So you can go through this registration process, and we will be answering through email and telephone line to all potential candidates and participants who want to take part in this competition. You may send your questions, proposals, clarifications, or if you need some consultation. So the registration process is open. It doesn't have any pre-moderation, because at the first stage we register all potential participants who are willing to take part, and we are registered them at the official website on the official website of the competition. The question from Tigran: can we present 2 options for each station? No, each team may present only one option, one proposal for one station at the first stage. We will not accept several options for one station. One station, one proposal. Can we propose, this is a question from Sergei, can we propose a non-standard construction scheme as a possible design solution for the station? Alexei, what do you think about this? Well, I guess I'm still afraid to answer this question because I don't understand the meaning fully. I just wanted to mention that the stations, when they are designed in such a spot, in such a place, we need to look through. So those are transfer stations. We have a line nearby, and we need to keep some distance from this line, keep some distance from the ground, from some utility facilities and systems. And so this size of the station would be calculated proceeding from those limitations, and taking into account that at this stage, at present stage, you don't have specific schemes, you just make proposals. That's why I would not want, maybe it will be some excessive work for you. And we can also say that here it will all be defined by the requirements that Moscow subway has and the limitations that are in place. So you need to study the documents before making a proposal, so it will comply with all the necessary parameters related to further operation of the station. But if you have some additional questions, please send it to us. Our organizing committee will work it through with Alexei and other colleagues. Question from Sergei. Could you please specify, are there ground level entrance halls and groups for the stations? Well, of course there will be ground level entrance halls for the stations over the underground passageway, but as I see it, it will be dealt with at the second stage. So there will be these halls, of course. Question from Daniel. Dynamic elements that are non-desirable. You mean lighting as well? Additional lighting? Does it relate to additional lighting as well? I guess yes, because there were proposals, for example, during the first competition when at the Novoperedelkino station, someone proposed to change the lighting when the train approached. There has been a RGB, different lights, but Moscow subway refused it because here we speak about the safety of the train driver. When the train driver approaches the end of the tunnel, then the light changes and he might experience some problems with the sight that should not distract him from driving. So yes, so I mean dynamic elements in the lighting would not be desirable here. Thank you. Another question. If our application means presenting an idea, can we, in this case, refuse from columns and offer, for example, beams for a large span? Well, I guess that no. I guess that now we have to propose what I've already said. If it's a just empty space, if we don't need some beams or etc. But at the second stage you will have a term of reference, and you will not be able to change it. And the terms of reference that we have now is a 2-span and 3-span station. So at the 2-span station you will have the column in the middle of the platform, and in the 3-span station you will have 2 rows of columns. It will not work in a different way. We just be looking at some unreal station that will not be implemented and constructed. So in this case, it is really more important to be as constructive as possible. So you need to first think about the construction of the station, taking into account the conditions of soil or any other limitations. And because what you propose, there are some stations with the flat floor with the bridge overpass, but then we have to see the cost of this station. What was proposed now are the best solutions and decisions, taking into account some architectural and construction requirements. So in this case, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. Maybe it would be better to think about what we have already. So you have a facility, and you have some premises, and you need to invent something new. You need to present some creative solutions. So I don't think that it will be really necessary to make some column-free station or some other type of station. It would not be correct at present stage. I don't think we have to do this. That would be my answer. So Olga, please, you have the floor. I just wanted to say that the name of the competition speaks about the appearance and the concept. That's what Alexei has just said. We have it in the name of the competition. It's just the appearance and the concept. There is no space for the changes of. There is no space for some constructive changes. That's what you meant in your question, I guess. Question from Anna: are there some conditions on the lighting at the stations? In order not to stop on this, I would say that yes, there are some conditions that are very well defined by the Moscow subway. You can find this information in open documents, in the regulations. If you don't find it, please, you may send a request through the official email of the competition. We'll send you all the necessary information. The requirements are really clear as for the lighting at the stations. The question from Angie: the information about the company consortium leader will be presented in a free form, or shall we fill some form? And do we need to add the contracts about the consortium? That will be different from the stipulations in the appendix number 5. Well, in this case, this information shall be presented in the full compliance with the electronic form that is provided on the website. If you are registered on the website, you will see the form with each paragraph that should be filled in. As for the information about the consortium, company, participants, etc. As for the appendix 5, it is compulsory. What goes beyond is up to you. Question from Irina: as for high-value solutions that will go beyond the budget, finishing construction matters, will you be considering such proposals? Well, that's why we specified this number, not more than 250,000 million rubles. That's for underground part. So I don't think we have to exceed this budget. If you think that you will be using some high-value materials, Russian materials, that will be suitable for subway, then in some part you'll have to make it cheaper. Some elements, you will have to make some elements cheaper in order to comply with this number. It is really important for us. 250,000 million rubles, that's the condition for the competition you have to comply with. A question from Maurizio: what documents will be presented, the sizes of the documents, and the documentation for platforms. Once again, in order to access any documentation, you need to go to official website and to be registered. The documents, basic documents, invitation for participation, and the conditions of the competition are available on the official website. And even now, right now, at this webinar, you will see the tab Documents, where you will be able to download all the basic documents, both in Russian and in English. More specific information and data will be presented in your personal profile after the registration for those teams that will qualify for the second stage and will have the right to work on the competition solution in the framework of the contract. Question from Olga. She asks, during the previous competitions, there's been a basic 3D model of each station at the first stage. In order to formulate an idea, will those models be presented here during this competition? Well, we don't have the model because it is now being worked through. It's because those stations are being designed, and the main work is being done about the transfers and limitations and the moving of utility systems. So we don't have 3D models right now, because for each station there might be 10 options. We've just given one of the options for you that may be implemented in the future, so we don't have these models right now. Question from Tigran. So the transfer will be done through the vestibule. As for the Klenoviy Boulevard station, there is a entrance hall already after the first competition, so the transfer will be done through them, or there will be some new entrance halls. No, we speak about this entrance hall that is already there, so it will be just a single entrance hall at the station that we are now constructing, Canova Boulevard 2. There will be, at the level of the entrance hall, there will be a distributing hall without ticket offices, without police, and other facilities. And all the rest, ticket offices, some additional elements, will be at the entrance hall that was at the previous competition, which is now under construction in the large circle line. So it will be just a single entrance hall where passengers will be distributed in this space. As for the full-fledged entrance hall, there will be no full-fledged entrance hall at the Klenoviy Boulevard 2 station, but this will be compatible with the just normal entrance hall of any metro station. So that's why we say that this station with two entrance halls, I mean Klenoviy Boulevard 2, but in fact there will be only one of the entrance halls will be a full-fledged entrance hall. The one we will use in order to get an access to the station from the city. There will be ticket offices, securities and safety zones, and all the other elements of a normal entrance hall. So in this case, this space, the two entrance halls will be united, will be combined in one space, in one entrance hall. So, colleagues, do you have any questions? I see no new questions in our chat. If you have any additional questions, well, I see in your question. So the question is, at the Klenoviy Boulevard 2 station, there will be two spans, the platform at the center and the tracks on sides, or the tracks will be at the center and there will be two platforms. So, as for Klenoviy Boulevard 2, this is a two-span station, the tracks on both sides of the platform. It's an island platform, just a standard station of Moscow subway. You may visit some stations, like, for example, Raskazovka station of Kalininskaya-Solntsevskaya line or Novoperedelkina station. They are just similar, and you can get the sizes and parameters from there, from those stations. And the Klenoviy Boulevard 1 station, there are tracks in the center and onshore platforms. This is just a unique hub when we move from one type to another type of stations. But in this case, Canova Boulevard 2 is just a standard station, columns in the center and tracks on the sides. Thank you. So we don't have new questions in our chat. Once again, colleagues, if you have some questions, please send them to our chat so we'll be able to discuss them and take them. Irina says, do we need to think about the elevator units? Well, in all the stations we have these units at the ends of the platform for low mobility people and citizens. I don't know if it will be important for you. All the elevator units are at the ends of the platform, and they are and moreover, the Moscow subway just asks us not to make them from the glass. They ask us to make it from reinforced concrete, to make an reinforced concrete elevator shaft, and the elevator hall maybe as a security zone for disabled people at the same time. So there are elevators. If you will include them into your project, it will be okay, but I don't think it will affect somehow the design. Dear participants, do you have any other questions? We are following our chat. Do you want to clarify or ask something? And I just remind you that the chief architect Sergei Kuznetsov has agreed to additionally take some additional questions that you may have towards him. As the chief architect, he will answer those questions. We'll send those questions to him, and we will have some possibilities for additional sessions. I see a question from Kira Soboleva. She says, thank you so much for a great webinar. Everything is crystal clear, and the information is really important for the first stage. Well, it's not a question. She just thanks us. And Nikolai asks us, can you specify the height of the platform hall? Not more than 5 or 6 meters, not more than that. This is the parameter. And taking into account the fact that those are transfer stations with existing lines, we cannot make this parameter bigger. So the height cannot be bigger. So colleagues, do you have any additional questions? Well, we don't see any additional questions. We would like to thank you for joining our webinar. We try to present as much information as possible in order to assist you for the participation. On your screen you see the key information, the website, designmetro.ru. Email is info@designmetro.ru, and the telephone that works from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. in order to assist you with your possible questions and to provide you with consultations online, +7 495 123 4553. This webinar will be available on our official website of the competition and on the website of the Center Agency. Thank you so much for participating in this webinar. I would like to thank my colleagues and all the speakers that took part in this webinar. They spoke in detail about all the important issues. I would like to thank Alexei as the representative of Mosinzhproekt, who is the main driver of this process, and also I would like to also thank Mr. Sergei Kuznetsov because he also participated in the webinar. And now we finish our webinar. Thank you so much for your participation.